Chapter 2. Leia. Every young Grimalkin knows that once they hit their teenage years, they must undergo the test. Something once celebrated has now become a ceremony of fear and discontent. Once an honor that fast-tracked a young Grimalkin into a world of prominence and importance is now a curse that all working families hope desperately to avoid. Leia's class lines up, all wearing their best formal clothing. Every single child looks to have their fur brushed several times, female and male Grimalkins alike, waiting to be judged. Children! Greta, their teacher, calls out as her voice cracks nervously. Having taught these Grimalkins since they were very young, she hopes none of them get a positive result. They are her only family, and she cares deeply for each and every one of them. Miss? The children all call out, standing to attention. Do you remember what we practiced? Greta asks, doing her best to remain professional in the grace of the bigwigs from the Royal Guard. Yes, miss, the students reply in unison. However, Leia doesn't answer. She's silent, looking down at her feet. Her ears are droopy and her demeanor reflects the depressed feeling in the room. It's so cold you could almost taste the fear in the air. Leia, dear, Greta whispers, approaching her as she looks nervously over her shoulder, hoping that none of the guards are watching. Chin up, don't stand out. Leia looks up, and there's a tear in her eye. Leia wipes her eye with her paw and sobs. Scared. Alarm bells ring out in Greta's mind. She knows she has to comfort Leia, otherwise the entire class will be punished for discontent. Greta looks over her shoulder, hoping that Leia's emotional state hasn't been noticed. They're in the clear. For now. Leia, Greta whispers. I'm scared too, she admits. It'll all be over soon, and we'll all be back home with our families and the people we love. Just be brave for me. I'm sure your test will come back negative. Greta again checks the guards, and her heart sinks as one stares directly at her. Greta knows she has to say something to try and hide the fact one of her students is crying. That's right, Leia! Greta speaks loudly, pretending to give her students a pep talk. Greta then positions herself directly in front of Leia to hide her. Today could potentially be the greatest day of yours and your family's life. Greta sees the guards smiling as she spiels off the propaganda the royal family forces her to teach. She breathes a short sigh of relief before continuing her speech. If you are found to be one of the best of us, a Formador, you'll be leading our people into the future, bringing our enemies to their knees and ensuring a prosperous future for our kind. Only giving the suspicious guard a quick glance, Greta is pleased they've lost interest. Still standing with her back to Leia, Greta reaches around her back and holds her paw out for Leia to take. As Leia puts her paw in Greta's, she squeezes tight to comfort her. It'll be okay, Greta whispers, talking directly to Leia and all the other Grimalkin children who might be listening. Just keep in line and don't draw attention. Moments later, a scientist appears from the doors at the end of the room they're all waiting in. Greta knows it's Dr. Elm. She's heard all the rumors about him and his twisted experiments with the creatures discovered on the seed worlds. He is infamous to Vastinians, protected from his abhorrent crimes by the royal family. Appearing next to him is a Grimalkin with the darkest of fur. Her eyes are emerald green and fierce. Greta can't even bring herself to look in her direction. It's almost like this one royal guard is the demon so foul. Stepping aside, Greta allows Dr. Elm to start shuffling the children into the test chamber. As Greta leans up against the nearby wall, trying to make herself as invisible as possible, her mind thinks back to when she had her test all those years ago. The test chamber is a large, dark, and empty room. Greta had once heard that the test chamber used to be a happy and exciting place. Still, since the latest and longest Grimalkin War isn't going so well, it's become the terrifying environment that all children have nightmares about. Greta thinks back to how a doctor stood by a small table in the middle of the room. She remembers feeling terrified. She also remembers when she first saw the soft purple glow of Seelie energy contained in a small glass orb. She remembers her heart almost stopping in fear as it floated above the doctor like magic. She can't remember too much about the test. It was like a waking nightmare. Thankfully for her, she was a negative. She quickly shuffled out of the room. Although she'd got lucky, the image of that orb haunted her for months after. Something about it felt so unnatural. "Hey, did you hear there's a sparring match tonight in the main hall?" One of the guard chats to the other guard, as the kids are slowly taken into the testing chamber one by one. Greta can't help but listen in. Anything to take her mind off of worrying for her students. She hasn't seen a Formador student for years. Not since young Heidi. Greta rubs her face and mumbles under her breath as she remembers the poor child. Such a good girl. "Yeah!" the second guard replies enthusiastically. "It's the captain versus that hybrid thing everyone keeps talking about. We all know the captain's moves are unreal, but I've heard that the hybrid thing moves so quickly you can't even see him move. Not only that, it just keeps on going and going, like it has no off switch." Their conversation makes Greta think of the articles she's been reading. Although they are contraband, she did manage to get a hold of one describing a new secret weapon the Royal Guard is keeping under their wraps. "Shh!" The first guard reacts nervously. "Don't say it out loud. There are civilians here." That same guard looks in Greta's direction. Greta does everything she can to appear like she hasn't heard them talking. She doesn't move, or even breathe. Staring down at her feet, Greta fiddles with the belt around her skirt. She can't wait to get out of here. She deeply hates this place. "Hey," the second guard whispers to the other one, trying not to be heard. Unfortunately for Greta, she can still hear them whether she wants to or not. "I've been assigned to that seed world everyone's been talking about. You know, S51E, where the hybrid came from." "Have you?" the first guard replies, unable to whisper quietly enough for Greta not to hear. "Yeah," the second one sighs. "I'm not looking forward to the portal transformation. Walking on all fours is so embarrassing. They really should fix it." "Do you think that's why they're so desperate for Formadors?" "Must be. That, or they are making more..." The guard suddenly stops talking. It's like something has stolen their tongue. Greta looks up from her feet to see the captain of the Royal Guard standing by them with purpose. Her iconic sword hangs from her armor belt. Her emerald green eyes remain just as cold and emotionless as a moment earlier. "Guards," the captain speaks. Her tone is short and sharp. "We've got a positive. Please join the doctor and ready the young Formador for transport." Greta's heart sinks, and a shiver goes down her spine. Her mind races, and thoughts of rescuing the student whose positive fleetingly flutter in her mind. However, with the captain standing directly in front, her fear gets the better of her, and she can't move a single muscle. "Yes, Captain Ursula," the two guards shout in obedience. As the two guards scurry into the test chamber, Greta finds herself alone with the captain. The fur on her back neck stands up on end, and she can't help but stare in awe and horror. "Congratulations, teacher," Ursula says without looking in Greta's direction. "You've done the royal family proud." Greta forms a fist with one paw. They are sentencing one of her students to a life of torture, and that doesn't sit well with her. Thank you," Greta eventually replies, but only because it's polite to do so. "I've doubled your rations for this week around," Ursula continues, her voice cold and calculated. Greta's mouth twitches, and she almost bares her fangs in reaction. It's the absolute worst thing she can do. Baring your fangs in a public place can get you arrested. So baring your fangs at a member of the Royal Guard would be very bad. Very bad indeed. However, she manages to control herself. Ursula says nothing more. The noise of her heavy boots on the wooden floor echoes on the cold, thick walls as she walks away. As Ursula turns the corner, Greta is left in silence and seething internally. She can hear her own heartbeat as it thuds wildly in her chest, as she fears for the young student who's been identified as a Formador. As time passes, her students start reappearing one by one. Greta smiles at each one as they appear, but her students seem lost in their own thoughts. The waking nightmare that is the image of that orb flashes in her mind. She's not surprised. She wants only to get them away from this place. Eventually, all of her students are returned. Each and every one of them is deathly silent. Their faces are emotionless. Greta stands in front of them and tries her best to organize them into a line. She's anxious to find out who's missing, but her mind is scattered. "Teacher?" A voice calls out from the end of the room. Standing at the door to the test chamber, Dr. Elm has a broad grin on his face. The sight of him makes her feel sick. How did a male Grimalkin come to demand such power? "Congratulations," Elm laughs, nodding his head enthusiastically. "You and your negatives can now leave, but the positive one stays with us. They have a prodigious future ahead of them." Greta forces a smile in reply. Yes, Doctor." Not wanting to look at that man any longer, Greta turns her attention to her students, reading out each child's name to ensure they are present. She gets to Leia, and no child replies. The silence is deafening, and it makes Greta's stomach churn. "Leia?" she calls out again, hoping and praying to hear her answer. Silence. The realization of who's missing hits Greta like a city tram. It almost breaks her, and she has to fight back the tears. "Leia!" she calls out a third time. Silence. A single tear rolls down Greta's face, eventually running down one of her whiskers. Leia was such a gentle soul. Her parents, down-to-earth, hard-working Grimalkins. They don't deserve this. In a moment of utter grief, Greta bares her fangs in public. The worst kind of faux pas in Grimalkin society. But no one is looking, or even cares. Her heartbreak is hers, and hers alone.